And welcome back. This is your man Warrior. This is another patron roster review, and this is Hona, who's a whale who's been playing a little over 2.5 years. Now, Hona wants me to take a look at ships because Arena top 100 is not a big deal, but with ships, what definitely wants to get into the top 200 and then eventually top 100. So big deal there. Obviously wants to kind of know about Arena a little bit and the next faction focus, like who should he be focused on faction-wise, and then also kind of Grand Arena, like which characters or ships or individuals should he be focused on for Grand Arena, which kind of plays into the next faction. So we're going to talk about those together. Now we're going to start with ships, and you're using the Chimera. I would continue to use your Chimera, and you're using the Geos with Houndstooth. That's actually meta. There's a ton of people doing this, and it's not a bad idea. The problem is if you get caught up behind somebody who happens to have a 7-star Houndstooth and your Geos aren't totally and completely maxed out, you're not going to be able to do enough damage to be able to get through him. Now, if they have a 4-star and you have your Geos maxed, you can actually use specials and cut right through the Houndstooth, but it kind of depends on where your Geos are. Now, there's a couple solutions for that. The first is to keep your team, except for you're going to want to put Sunfac in the front. And the reason is you'll have a dual tank with the soldier out, which will kind of delay the inevitable. Now, they can target your Sunfac, which is not good when Houndstooth is out, but it won't matter because Spy is going to come out as your first reinforcement. And when Spy comes out, it will auto taunt, it can force taunt someone other than the target that you have. So it will grant an enemy taunt for 1 turn, which can't be resisted. So now you can get around Houndstooth and leave your specials until Spy comes in as your first reinforcement, and then use all of your specials to just obliterate the other ship. And then you can start to take out other ships as you see fit. But breaking that initial chain and destroying certain key ships, such as Ghost or TIE Advanced, are going to make a huge difference, a world of difference with the setup that you have. Now, there's a lot of differing comps that you can use, and if you're using the Chimera, the team I just suggested, obviously Spy would be your first reinforcement, your Phantom 2 would be next, TIE Advanced would be third, and then your Cassian's U-Wing would be fourth. And the reason is he can call an assist with TIE Advanced and you can do some massive damage, and he also dispels. You're going to need that dispel to kind of get rid of a lot of stuff that's happening out there, especially if Breach hasn't been landed yet. You'll definitely be able to cleanse out everybody, including the taunt on Houndstooth, which is big. TIE Advanced also can get rid of the taunt on Houndstooth as well, provided there's a target lock. So definitely that's a great kind of lineup. But we're going to talk about an alternate lineup, which is still using the Chimera. You're going to use Houndstooth, and you're going to use TIE Advanced actually in your front 3 lineup. Now, the reason for that is he does a lot of damage. Under Chimera, you're going to be able to put offense up pretty quickly, and he's going to do a lot of damage. You're going to have a better chance of chewing through higher end Houndstooths with this ship in your front lineup than the Geos. And the other thing is, as soon as you get the target lock out, you're going to be able to start to dispel faster, which will help you target other ships faster. And so with Darth Vader's ship, plus it's fast, so it gives you a higher speed advantage over the Geos that have a slower speed naturally. Now, the third ship that you'd probably want to put in with these ships is going to actually be the Ghost. And the reason for the Ghost, which you need some work on, is because it can go stealth to protect itself, and it calls assist. It can do a mass attack, and it has a really devastating AoE. Now, if you don't think it has a devastating AoE, it's because you've never seen a Ghost maxed out, but I do easily 65,000 to all the ships on the board. That is really high damage for an AoE in this game. And so you definitely want to get all of your guys up to gear level 11, and then you can start to focus on getting their crew powers up and maxed out. Once you have this ship maxed out, you're going to be very, very impressed. The other thing is this ship is currently meta and is going to be meta in the future. I'm sure of it. So with that said, you definitely want to level up the rest of Ghost and max that out. Now, if you're using Houndstooth, Ghost, and the TIE Advanced in your front 3, what makes sense to have in your backup? Well, none other than Phantom 2 as your initial ship, and then you can go ahead, bring in a couple of dispellers, such as you could have Cassian's U-Wing and TIE Reaper, which you have both 7 stars and decently geared characters for those ships. And then the last is you could throw another tank in like Slave 1 or Sunfax if you want to have the stun. Now, ultimately, I would suggest Anakin's ETA-2 because it's an attacker, does a lot of damage, and it's just a really great top 5 ship. It's a top 3 attacking ship, but it's definitely a top 5 overall ship. It's really, really solid. The AoE with Exposed when he comes in on reinforcement is huge, and he does a lot of damage with the target lock synergy is just really great. So that's one that you don't really have focus on, and it will become farmable over the next 4 to 6 weeks. So because of that, developing your crew member is probably important. The other cool thing I like about ETA-2 is it is a ship that does AoE, kind of like the Ghost, but it's only 1 crew member. You don't have to develop out 3 crew members. You only develop out 1. Any ship where there's only 1 crew member and is good, that is a ship worth developing for sure. Now, I know you didn't ask a whole lot about Arena because you're doing pretty good, but I did want to kind of go through the turn order. You're definitely going to want CLS to go first, and you have him your fastest, so that is good. You have all the Zetas that matter on this team, so that is good. And then you have R2-D2 would be your second fastest, and then after that, you would then have Chewie, your third, C-3PO your fourth, and Han would actually be your slowest. He can give himself a bunch of bonus turn meter, plus he gets to shoot first, and your focus with him is really damage, and with Chewie it's going to be damage. So the way you're going to get really, really high damage with Chewie and Han Solo is going to be similar. You're going to do an offense set, and you're going to do a crit chance set. Crit chance is really important, and offense set is going to boost your offense on both those characters very, very high. Now, both of them, you're going to want to go ahead and do an offense arrow, and the reason for that is the boost in offense is insane, and you're going to want to do an offense plus, and the boost to offense is insane. Then you're going to want to slice to 60 eventually your square, your arrow for offense, and your plus. Now, if you're using them in phase 3 of the Sith raid, this is going to be amazing in the Sith raid, but it also works very well in Arena. The only caveat is if you do this and change this from speed to offense, you're going to have some pretty decent speed secondaries to catch your speed minimums, with Chewie being the third fastest. You're going to have to make sure C-3PO goes after and Han Solo goes last. And with that said, you're just going to have a much better job punching through individuals. Chewie goes all the time. Han goes all the time, and it's just a lot of damage. So you want these guys to just be destroying people when they hit them. You punishing your opponent by just having as much offense as physically possible. And that's about it for this team. I would just really crank out the offense on those 2 characters, and then make sure that your turn order is correct with, CLS being first, R2-D2 being second, Chewie being third, C-3PO being fourth, and then Han being fifth. So it kind of works in a clockwise fashion, if you will, if you're staring at your team. And so that's about all I'm going to go there. But we're going to go ahead and talk about a couple of factions you need to focus on. This is for Grand Arena, but also for just the next faction that you should focus on. And after taking you through my new 5-pillar system, I got stuck on pillar 3 with the Old Republic, and I found that this hasn't been touched. Now, the only side character that I would recommend you just instantly put in your favorites and start developing is actually Bastila Shan Fallen. This is one of the greatest top 4 Siths in the game, top 5 Sith characters in the game. So you definitely need her because she's in the best team in the game for Sith. So you want her. Even at 3 stars, she's amazing. 3 stars, Gear 11, level up her abilities, and you don't need a Zeta. Just level her up to Gear 11 and her abilities maxed except for the Zeta, and she is awesome in your Sith teams, which you have a decent Sith team. Now, the rest, Bastila looks great. Jolie Bindo, you're going to have to take to 7 stars. The good news is he's on kind of a lower level dark side node, so you should be able to get him relatively quickly because your energy will go a little further. And then same with Zalbar and T3, a little easier to get, so grind them out. And then Mission, yes, Mission's going to be the hardest of all 5, but this should be your number 1 priority. When Revan comes back, you don't want to miss him. You definitely want to get him. He's one of the top 3 best characters in the game, so you want to finish out your Old Republic. This is going to help you also with Grand Arena, Territory Wars, but it's just the most important faction of all. Now, you have a lot of stuff done because you're a whale, but I did notice 2 other factions that need some love after the Old Republic. Next faction is actually Smugglers, and Smugglers are, kind of scoundrels slash smugglers, and there's a bunch that come out of the latest Solo movie, but Kira is the only lead in this group and is amazing. Of course, Infus Nest is like Wampa, so super amazing character. Finish that off. You already have Han Solo and Chewbacca, but L3 and Vandor are two of the top tanks in the game. They're absolutely amazing. So of this list, Kira, Nest, L3, and Vandor. And the thing is, L3 is not too bad to get, and Vandor is not bad at all either. Kira, you already have 7 stars, so Gear is it. And then Infus Nest, definitely just the stars. And then eventually the Zeta. You don't need a Zeta on Kira or L3, but eventually when you get Vandor 7 stars, Gear 11 or so, you definitely want to put the Zeta on Vandor Chewbacca. But this faction right here is very, very versatile. Offense, defense, every area of the game. And there is actually a Smuggler event, and you're going to need Kira for that regardless. And the best team, in my opinion, to take into that is going to be Kira, Han Solo, Chewbacca, L3, and Vandor. Having those 2 tanks, 2 damage dealers, and an attacker, you just totally and completely can max out that new event. Now, the last of the 3, which will be the third or last priority of all of these priorities, will be your Imperial Troopers. And the reason is, 1, your Imperial Troopers are good enough kind of for now. So that's why Revan's more important. And then the Smugglers are second in priority. But then eventually you do want to come back here and finish these guys off. One of the things is Death Trooper and Colonel Stark are just Gear 9. You definitely want to get them up to at least Gear 11. And Gear 12 does a lot for the Troopers. It really does. Plus it opens up Gear 12 Plus, which allows you to put in pieces that add speed to these characters and a lots additional health to these characters. Now, of all of them that you haven't really addressed, Ranged Trooper would be the #1 priority of all of them. Obviously, General Veers and Shore look pretty good, but Death Trooper, Stark are important, but Ranged Trooper is kind of bottom of the barrel right now. So you're definitely going to want to focus on Ranged Trooper, taking him up. He is farmable on a super, super easy node. In fact, I just started the game all over again, and I've been farming him since day 1. I was able to unlock his node on the very first day. So super awesome. You can get him really fast, really easy, not too bad. Go ahead and start grinding him out and level him up. He kind of makes it to where you don't need a tank for this team, so you can put him in either in a team where Death Trooper is, and then you can take Death Trooper out if you're like doing the raids, and you can use Death Trooper in a different team. Or if you're trying to be real offensive in Grand Arena or Territory Wars, you can take Shore Trooper out to work under like Emperor Palpatine to go against like Night Sisters, because you need the Shore Trooper heal for the night going against Night Sisters. But then you could put in Ranged Trooper in that place, and that team also does really, really well against Smugglers, Scoundrels, Night Sisters, all sorts of stuff. So Ranged Trooper brings about a level of viability and durability that kind of replaces either Shore or Death. And in the early game, for someone like me, I can't even get to Death Trooper or Shore Trooper, so Ranged Trooper is an absolute necessary must on this team. So Hona, you look like you're doing really well. Like I said, you're in the top 100. Focus on offense for those 2 characters, Han and Chewie. Get your priority right on those, and think about not just doing the fleet I suggested with the Geos, but possibly the Houndstooth, Ghost, and TIE Advanced in your front 3. I think you might find more success with it, and it's a little different, and so people tend to have more difficulty with comps that are different than what they're seeing all the time. Keep farming, of course, your Houndstooth, and you're going to get Jango with that automatically. And make sure you put Bastila Fallen into your favorites, because of all the characters you kind of have ignored, she's like #1 priority. But remember, Old Republic's your first priority for Revan. And then the Imperial Troopers are going to be last, the ones we just talked about, and your Smugglers are going to be right in the middle as second priority. Get that Smuggler team up. You're not going to regret it at all. If anyone watching has any thoughts, leave them down below in the comment section. And as always, keep your gaming on. Warrior out.